Hello friends, it's been a while since I've done a video, and I'm only doing this one now because I really believe that the Father is urging me to do so. Several years ago I posted a YouTube video where I shared several dreams and visions that I had experienced, and at the time I wasn't sure what they all meant, but I believe that Yahweh has given me more insight for some of them, and I want to revisit those with you today. It is June of 2020, and so much has happened in America and across the world. And one of those things being the pandemic, and the other being ongoing protests and riots that have developed in big cities across the nation and have also gone over into Greece and parts of England. But before I go on, I want to say that I am nobody. Apart from Yeshua Messiah, I am nothing and I can do nothing. If these dreams are from the Father, then I pray that He will continue the work that He started when He gave them to me, and I pray that He will be glorified. I pray that everyone who takes time to listen to this video will have ears to hear and eyes to see what the Spirit is saying, and turn to the Father in His ways, following the example that Yeshua gave to us. Amen. The first dream that I want to revisit with you is concerning one that I had April 8th in 2013. I shared this dream briefly in the video I mentioned already, but now I want to share it in detail and discuss what I believe are the insights that are relevant to what has been and is going on. So here's the dream. I was in a large building, 2 stories at least. There were Boy and Girl Scouts who were coming in for a tour of sorts. The boys arrived first and then the girls, and they had to go up a staircase. The kids were wearing uniforms with the shoulder-to-waist sash, which is why I thought that they were scouts. I was holding the door for them, and when they arrived, I directed them as to where they would go. I was standing at the top of the staircase that they came up. There was a radio program that was going to take place, and the kids were going to sit in the studio. The place was very large and open. The kids had to sit on the floor. I was also supposed to keep the kids quiet when the on-air sign was on. Of course, there were always some who wanted to talk anyway. There were also a few parents there who had brought some of the kids' toddler siblings. I was also trying to keep the toddlers from getting hurt. There were Christmas trees or evergreen trees there, and there was a toddler that kept going under them, and I asked the mom to please not let the child do that because I didn't want it to get hurt, and she basically ignored me. The majority of the kids were well behaved, but there were a couple who wanted to talk during their broadcast, and the moms were worse, just letting the little ones run around all over the place. Okay, there was a train that was transporting items, and yes, the train was inside the building. I also had a job of picking up items that fell off the train, and they were mostly toys. Most of the items were toys. However, there was one car that we wanted to stop and completely inspect. There was a man on the opposite side of the tracks who was helping me. I never saw his face, only his hands and his arms. In this one train car that we were inspecting, there was a zipper bag, and when I opened the zipper, it revealed a man's leg inside the bag. And the leg was in camouflage, and it still looked like it was fresh, like it was alive, but it was a dark purple color. And when I saw the leg, it made me gasp, and I jumped back. And I believe that I really did gasp because that's what woke me up. But one more thing in the dream, at some point in the dream, I don't remember when, I was talking to a man that I knew at the time who was in the army at the time. Okay, so that dream was in 2013. And then in my journal, I had written where in November of 2015, I said I thought of this dream out of the blue today, and then I jotted down some insights that I had about it. So almost 2 years later is when I started getting insight to this dream. The boys and the girls in the uniform represent young adults or youth who are being conformed. Upstairs shows a progression. The radio is symbolic of programming or indoctrination taking place. And with some of the kids talking, that means that not all of them are listening. There were talking moms there, and this represents parents who are clueless or callous to what's going on. And the wandering toddlers represent youth who need guidance. With it being in one large room, I believe that represents that the influence of the programming is large, and or it could mean that it represents one nation. The Christmas trees may be a possible time frame. Maybe something will happen around Christmas. I don't know. But here is another insight that I more recently got. Back in 2019, I learned that Hillary Clinton's Secret Service code name is Evergreen. So could they have just simply been evergreen trees? Because I did not write in my journal that the trees were decorated, and I'm usually pretty good about recording the details that I remember. Okay, so the train represents a movement that is not easily stopped. Toys represent distractions, things to appease the youth. The zipper bag means something concealed, and the man's leg in camo, I believe, represents military power that was cut off. And with it being purple typically represents authority, like a king, royalty, but represents authority. And then the man helping, whose face I didn't see, I believe represents Yahweh. So here's my summary of that dream. America's youth have been going through a slow progression of indoctrination and programming to bring them into conformity. Many parents are clueless or callous as to what is taking place in their kids' minds. Thankfully, not all of the kids are listening, but they need guidance. The influence of this programming is large. Evergreen, Hillary Clinton, and a vast part of the Democratic Party and many in the Republican Party are the ones orchestrating this national programming. The train represents a movement that is not easily stopped. The toys falling off the train represent distractions, things to appease the youth. I believe that the zipper bag represents things that are concealed. The opening or unzipping of the bag represents revelation of the things hidden. I believe the man who I couldn't see, other than his hands and his arms, is the Father who is always there to help me and at times reveal things to me. The man's leg in the camo, I believe, represents a possible cutting off of our military power or someone in authority. And since I spoke to someone whom at the time I knew was in the Army, I believe that confirms the military authority element. Okay, so the second dream I want to share with you is, or revisit with you, is one that I had in February of 2015. I saw Barack Obama on TV. He was giving a speech in front of a very large crowd. He had horns growing out of his head. They looked like the beginning stages of ram's horns or goat's horns. They were really dark and thick and not fully developed. When I saw him from the side or the back, I could see that there were 3 horns. The one in back was shorter than the ones in the front. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. No one else seemed to notice, and I was angry about that. I was yelling and throwing my arms around, and I was screaming, "Don't you see? Are you kidding me?" Well, after looking online for pictures of the horns, I think that the horns I saw on Obama looked to be like lamb's horns in about the 4-week stage. Revelation 13:11 talks about the second beast who had 2 horns like a lamb. He spoke like a lamb. No, he had horns of a lamb but spoke like a dragon. Well, could 4 weeks equal 4 years? So 2 horns, 4 times 2 being 8. The shorter horn in the back was flat, like a stage. So could this mean that after Obama's 8 years, he is still working behind the scenes, setting the stage? Just like with Hillary Clinton, I learned that Barack Obama's Secret Service name is Renegade. And this will be important after I share more insights to the Great Deceptions Part 1 and 2 videos, which I also shared on YouTube a few years ago. And I encourage you to watch those, because in the first part I shared a dream about a UFO that I had in great detail. And I'm not going to give you the whole details again. I'm trying to keep it short. So anyway, in the Great Deception Part 1, in the video about the UFO, I equated the UFO to being deception, and that's why I called the videos Great Deception. So I listened to those two videos again recently to refresh my memory about what I shared. I decided to pray more about it, whether or not I should share all of this stuff with you guys or not. So I decided to go out in my garden and work in my garden and pray about it. And while I was working in the garden, I decided to listen to this video series that I've been watching recently. It's a man named Daniel. I can't remember his last name, but he is with Corner Fringe Ministry. And he has recently done a, so far, 5-part series on the 4 Horsemen of Revelation. I highly recommend that you watch those, and I'll leave links in, below this video. But I was listening to part 5, and the majority of the time I wasn't looking at the screen because I was in the garden working. I had the phone in my pocket. And when I finished working in the garden, I came inside. And as I was, at the time, he was talking about the red horse of Revelation. And I looked at the screen. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and I looked at the screen. And right when I looked at the screen, he was showing a picture of someone's rendition of the red horse and horseman. And it was very similar to a picture that I shared in The Great Deception, Part 1. And so, in The Great Deception Part 1, I shared a description of the horse on the picture that I was sharing, and it described the horse as a bronze horse. Well, bronze is reddish in color. So, since I saw that right at the time I took the phone out of my pocket, I just saw that as confirmation from Yahweh that yes, I do need to share these things with you all. So that's why I'm doing this. And like I said, I'll leave links below to the Corner Fringe video series and also to the Great Deceptions Part 1 and 2, because it will help you make more sense of some things. And also I share a lot of scripture, which I'm going to refer to again. So anyway, remember, Barack Obama's Secret Service name is Renegade. And renegade basically means traitor. Okay, so I believe that there is a strong possibility that the dream concerning deception that I talked about in the other videos is also pointing to former President Barack Obama, just like the dream of the horns, with him with the horns. So, my final thoughts are these. We are living in some crazy times. I believe the Father gave me dreams and visions years ago to prepare us for what is to come. I believe that our government is full of people with the spirit of Antichrist. I believe their fruits confirm this. I believe that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama have been and continue working toward bringing our nation to ruin for their own personal agendas. I believe that our military has both honorable and dishonorable people. The honorable are trying to bring the truth to light, and the dishonorable are working with the corrupt officials to cripple America. I believe that we are heading into much tribulation, if not the Great Tribulation. We are definitely, in my opinion, experiencing birth pangs that Yeshua mentions in Matthew 24. Now, having had 2 children, I know what birth pangs are, and most of the time pregnant women have what has become known as Braxton Hicks contractions, and those contractions are very uncomfortable, but they aren't the contractions leading into birth. But just So are these dreams simply showing us that we're in the Braxton Hicks stages, and not the Great Tribulation? I don't know. If that's the case, just because it's the Braxton Hicks contractions doesn't mean that the birth pangs are not coming. Okay, so all it means is that we have more time. But I don't think we need to be complacent, and I fight with this all the time, and I was really frustrated and disappointed with myself after revisiting my older YouTube videos that, I have become complacent again, and I have let down my guard in many ways. So I'm thankful that the Father has given me dreams and visions, and I'm thankful for his patience, his compassion. His mercies are new every morning, and great is his faithfulness. But I don't think we need to take advantage of his patience. Now is the time for us to prepare spiritually and physically. If we don't prepare, we won't be ready to stand firm to the end, and this terrifies me. So I encourage you to go to the Word, read Matthew 24, pray, seek his face, turn to the Father and turn to his ways. And the only way we're going to know his ways are to read his Word, to follow Yeshua's example, to live out what the Father spoke. Another thing I noticed going through my journals again was that back in 2014, I heard in my sleep simply the word Malachi. And so that following morning when I woke up, I read the book of Malachi. So I urge you to go back and read Malachi prayerfully to see if there is anything in that book that the Father wants you to see. And I pray that you would lift up our nation and lift up our president, lift up his administration, that he will humble himself in the sight of the Lord, that he will follow the Father's ways, that he will seek wise counsel and follow wise counsel. Pray for the people of our nation to turn to the Father, to seek his ways, to turn from our wicked ways, so that he will hear from heaven and heal our land. And I thank you that you gave your time. I pray if you think that these things are from the Father, I would be honored if you shared this video. And I love you, and I will keep you in my prayers. So, shalom.